Gundo Maswime from the University of Cape Town's Department of Civil Engineering joins us now via video link to weigh in on the National Construction Summit. Gundo, thank you so much for your time. So we've seen over the past couple of months how extortion has really become particularly pervasive in various sectors, especially when you look at the construction sector. Let's talk about how you think this summit should address this kind of criminality to create essentially a crime-free construction site.
Thank you, Unati. What the summit will achieve is that it will serve as a deterrent by merely stating it unequivocally that this issue has been put on the agenda of government and that there are different ministries, public works, the police ministry as well, that they are now collaborating to remove that sketch. So there will be a deterrent by just having the summit. However, the second part is that something like this, which has got tentacles in different sectors, which has got a very distinct pathology, needs to be studied systematically because there are certain incidents that appear as what we are calling construction mafia that are not. There are instances where a ward councillor or anyone with the influence starts to tamper with the employment processes of the general workers on a construction site. And because of the anger of the community, the site is disrupted. And then that is also just categorized as construction mafia. So what the summit should come up with is a proper strategic document which categorizes the manifestations of this phenomenon and characterizes it properly so that we do not use the wrong tool for the wrong thing, because there are things that must be addressed by policy. And then there are things that must be addressed by having a solid structure in communities, in municipalities, and intergovernmental relations, because in some instances, provincial government has a project in a municipality and uses a completely different system to what that municipality uses. And for that reason, it brings a lot of acrimony among subcontractors, and then others retaliate by stopping construction projects. So this is a multifaceted phenomenon which will, beyond this summit, require government to sit down and systematically characterize the manifestations so that their intervention can be more pointed and more directed.
And because it doesn't always present itself, like you rightfully point out, as, you know, this construction mafia, we've heard, of course, of business forums. One probably has to look at just the various stakeholders that are involved, starting with the summit. You know, you've got government officials, you've got industry leaders, law enforcement agencies who are trying to find these long-lasting solutions, to get rid of construction mafias while also preventing project delays. Where should the starting point be? I hear you saying, and you're talking about this strategic document, but where would that policy, for instance, lie?
The policy will lie with the CIDB, and thankfully, the board of the CIDB and the CEO, Mr. Bongani Dladla, was present at the summit, and they made their inputs as well. Why should it start at the CIDB? There has never been a record of criminals taking over a hospital and wanting to operate on patients masquerading as doctors. But because the construction sector has allowed itself to have contractors who have no qualification whatsoever related to the sector, it has cheapened access, and everybody has realized that they are actually able to become a contractor. There is no prerequisite for being a contractor. You get your documents, you register them with the CIDB, whether following the normal process or fraudulently, and then you can be registered at a grade that you want. So what that has done is that everybody has seen that the construction sector is something everybody can go to. So in the process of becoming contractors and subcontractors, people have also realized that if you can threaten the contractor or the client enough, you can even be given money without even offering to do any work. So then when this starts to manifest in KZN, It then joined the whole line of hitmen, Inkabi, which is peculiar to that part of the world. Here in the Western Cape, it goes into the gangs, it goes into prison, so it becomes a new structure of extortion. And in the Eastern Cape, as we have seen all these incidents of people being killed. So the manifestation is in different formats. The most important thing is to keep people out of the construction site that are not qualified to do construction work. It will also improve the quality of work that we get from contractors.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on, you're talking about, this being also a systemic problem. I mean, to what extent then does the socioeconomic drivers play a role here, and how should that be addressed? Because ultimately, we know that these businesses that are really much entrenched within these communities, very closely linked to, there is some sort of incentive that has to be given to those particular communities, and therein probably lies the problem. How should that aspect be addressed?
Yes, when you have construction work happening in your ward or your VD or voting district, then there will be people who are completely unskilled. Those people should be engaged as unskilled workers or general workers. Then you have people who are semi-skilled, who have some sort of skills that must be engaged thus. Then you have people who have small businesses, who in many instances have organized themselves into some sort of business fora or forums. Then the way to engage them is either you designate some work that is part of what the contractor is going to do and say to the contractor, you're going to designate this work, building of curbs or cutting grass, something that can be done without really the requirement of being a qualified construction company. Then with those, they have to either contest for that work or find a way of assigning that work to the local subcontractors. There has to be an arrangement like that. Then this must be overseen by a committee within a ward, a steering committee, which reports to the ward councillor, and there also should be a community liaison officer who is liaising between the contractor, the community, and the consultants and the client. And we've had reference to this in the summit, but just not in enough detail. So if there is a system that is working like that, we can replicate that system across the country and standardize it so that in any community, the procedure is the same. To avoid a situation where water affairs is a project, all projects are happening within municipal jurisdictions. So if, for example, you overpay, you pay them more in one project, when the next project comes, they will expect the same payment, and you find it's a municipal project, and so that standardization will work. And the engagement of subcontractors has to be systematic, because there are subcontractors who are not aiming to become established contractors, who just want to do small jobs for 200,000 rands as and when they arise within their ward. Then you have got those who are aiming to become fully fledged construction companies, and those must have a different approach to their engagement, and it must also differentiate the kind of work. If I'm building an electrical substation, you cannot have a subcontractor doing anything beyond putting a fence or paving the ground, because if they participate in the core work that is to be done, the contractor will not take liability if at the end you switch on and nothing is happening. So there are all these considerations which we are saying it is better to have people who are doing research on this sit down and put a nomenclature to the different categories of work and the different ways of engaging subcontractors and communities, so that there is a standardized way that can be replicated, and CIDB is in the best position to do that.
Absolutely. Gundo, thank you so much for your insights. Hopefully those all will be addressed during this particular summit. Gundo Maswime from the University of Cape Town's Department of Civil Engineering joining us there to discuss the National Construction Summit.